Between the two of them.
The inside of coats.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, they wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.
We'll turn this around. We'll turn this around. We'll turn this around. We'll turn this around. We'll turn this around.
Welcome, one and all, to the AGON by AOC Mazda MX5 Turbo Cup with hybrid. Round 6 here at Sebring, powered by VRRC. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I will be your solo host for tonight. Apparently Andy McEwan is unable to join us for this evening, and, well, I found out a couple of minutes ago. So we're going to see how this rolls. We're going to flow with it, and I'm hoping to get lots of interaction from you guys in the YouTube chat as well. I've got the usual suspect of Lewis alongside me, though, doing the brilliant broadcast Lewis Edwards does every single week. As I mentioned already, it's round 6 here at the Mazda Cup. We've had 5 fantastic rounds so far. It was very entertaining last time at Bridgehampton. The 2 sprint races that we had last week, and we'll be able to bring you all the results for them in a couple of minutes' time. But of course, we started the season off at Laguna Seca, Road America, Circuit of the Americas, Road Atlanta, obviously Bridgehampton, like I've just mentioned, at Sebring. We're here for our 40-minute race, the endurance event, basically, for the double points on offer for one singular race this evening. We're then off to Virginia International Raceway and Watkins Glen, and last time out, as we flip between the different graphics, last time out, we saw Eric Axelsen take the most amount of points, reasserting himself as a dominant force in the Mazdas. We haven't seen that really from him since Laguna Seca. Carl Felvis follows in suit, as he normally does. He was in second place, putting his mark down as a firm challenger. And we'll be able to see the championship in a couple of minutes' time, but those two very close indeed. Elliot Dalton-Ayres had probably his best round of the season. I believe he walked away with the driver of the round as well. That was unanimously decided by myself, Andy Lewis, and Rich. Adrian Felvis, thank you very much for jumping into the chat and saying hello. Championship standings then, I said it was pretty close. Well, Eric Axelsen and Carl Felvis separated by just 12 points. This is including the complicated drop rounds that the system works out for us. But Eric Axelsen on 193, Carl Felvis on 181. Joel Lask is in third place with 173. He loves a 40-minute race, as Joel Lask. Expect to see him towards the front end of the order as the evening goes on. Josh Martin's made his way up to 4th place with Elliot Dalton-Ayres in 5th. Mickey Taylor in 6th. Jens Verhoeven in 7th. Andy Carroll in 8th. Ethan Hill in 9th. And Sam Zero rounds out the top 10. So, with all that said and done, we are at round 6 at Sebring. We are in the Mazdas. You know the deal. You know the deal by now. They've got the hybrid. They've got the 2-litre turbo engines. Let's see how they get on with the bumpy nature of this fantastic Sebring circuit.
Welcome everyone to the 6th round of the AGON by AOC MX5 Turbo Cup. We're here at Sebring. Beginning of the lap now, you want to drift your way over to the right hand side for turn 1. It's going to be important to look out for this 0 marker board on the inside for your apex point. You can see it just there. Then you want to balance the throttle on the way out. Do not touch the gravel on the right hand side, that will really slow your momentum down. Now into turn 3, you want to avoid this curb on the left hand side, but you want to use all of it and the grass on the right hand side to open up the corner. It's really important to get a good exit out of here onto the first long straight of the lap. Now you can have a little bit of a breather and prepare yourself for turn 7 at the hairpin. You want to be looking for your braking point on the left hand side, using these boards to pick a point and then stab on the brakes. Get it turned in nicely, avoid the yellow curb on the inside and use up all of the road on the exit as usual. And drifting it slowly through the next Fangio chicane, not really a problem in an MX5. We go back over to the left hand side for turn 10, again using the brake marker boards on the left hand side to pick a braking point. Get it turned in quite early and power through the corner and then back over to the left hand side. There are alternate lines. You can go all the way over to the curb there, or you can stay left. Either one seems to work fine. You want to hold it in 4th through here if you can. Even though it gets a bit slidey, it is more beneficial to cut out the extra gear change that you have to make. Now coming up to arguably the most difficult chicane on the track to get right. Send it in. You want to use all the curb that you can. Try and keep the car settled and planted, but importantly you want to open up this final part of the complex to get a good run onto this straight, as it's quite a long straight now down into Sunset Bend at the final corner. This is going to be one that's going to catch a lot of drivers out, I think, with all of the bumps. You want to pick a line in practice that you can consistently work with. For me, I send it in and then let it run out a little bit wide, but try and keep it as close to the right hand side as I can, and let it flow out onto the exit, and that completes a lap of Sebring.
So, Sebring then, famous the world over for hosting its famous 12-hour sports car race back in 1952, actually. It's done it every single year since, as well as World Endurance Championships and many other sort of famous endurance races. One of the most used race tracks in all of America and all of the world, to be honest. But it does look particularly bouncy as we went on board with Lewis Edwards there for that track guide, and that is showing a little bit of inconsistency in the lap times in practice as well. This man, Eric Axelsson, did have the fastest time in practice by about 0.6 of a second. He was the only driver to jump into the 2 minutes and 14 seconds. It's a particularly long lap here at Sebring, and Eric, well, he's showing that he's got intentions of following that practice time up with some decent qualifying speed as well. Remember, qualifying, they're not allowed to use their hybrid system. In practice, they're allowed to use it as many times as they like and then come back in and recharge for the full 15 again. So it's a little bit pinch of salt we have to take with the practice times, that's for sure. There's Joel Lask, who's currently sat in the 4th place on your screen. He's 3rd in my timing. Hopefully, as soon as they come across the line, that'll sort itself out. But if we're talking about championship, we really do have to look back at the sprint races that we had at Bridgehampton. And I was just trying to get up how everybody got on at that one. Eric Axelsson, like I said, did take the most amount of points. Carl Felvis was 2nd. But remember, the HFT teammates were certainly working together. Carl Felvis and Nicky Taylor on that 2nd reverse grid. They worked together absolutely perfectly, and they came on the interviews and they were absolutely buzzing. I'm pretty sure they're going to try and recreate something similar tonight and try and take it to the rest of the field, because frankly, if they've got any hope in beating the likes of Eric Axelsson, they are going to need to work together. That was very impressive, considering I believe it was Nicky Taylor actually ended up in the wall off the start-finish line as well. So he did well to come back at it. There is Nicky Taylor on your screen, actually getting past a couple of the other drivers. Like I mentioned, Eric Axelsson did put the fastest lap time in, but we're probably expecting to see those times shed down by about 8 seconds. So don't really take any notice of them just yet. Julie Bradshaw in the YouTube chat. Good luck to Kyle and HFT, and a nice message to me as well. Thank you very much, Julie. Good luck to HFT indeed. I know a lot of you out there were voting for Carl Felvis as your driver of the day. In fact, he's on your screen now. Last time out at Bridgehampton. Didn't quite get it after really the only thing that went against Carl was race 1, where he drove well, but ultimately picked the wrong tactics. He went for the wrong strategy. He went for the soft tyres instead of the mediums, and that was ended up being his downfall, as well as obviously some contact further on in the race. That's I'm sure how the stewards saw it, but I wouldn't like to weigh in myself. By the looks of it, most drivers are on the medium tyres. I'm not entirely surprised by that. Sebring is an abrasive circuit. It's a very bumpy circuit, and those tyres will get worn away really rather quickly. Only 3 drivers that I can see, have decided to go for another compound. That's Sam Zero, Alok Iyengar, and John Jones, who are currently rocking the softs. I believe the rest of them are on the mediums. Do remember, this is a 40 minutes race as well. It's not the sprint championship, well, not the sprint races that we have in this particular championship. We have gone for a little bit of a hybrid approach this year in the MX5 USA Tour. Not only are we doing the MX5 with a few extra bells and whistles, the hybrids and the 2-litre engines and whatnot, and the obviously different compounded tyres and a few extra sort of gimmicks that we can play around with, like ABS and things like that. But we have gone for the slightly different format, shall we say. Half the races are 40 minutes, half the races are 20-minute sprint rounds. And if you're wondering how on earth that translates into the point system, if you haven't been tuning in recently, well, the 40-minute races are double points. So if someone wins here today, they will it's like they've won 2 races last week at Bridgehampton or next week at Virginia International Raceway. So everything's on the line. A little bit more pressure. I would say I prefer it a little bit, actually. It has a little bit more tactics because, of course, they do have to have a mandatory pit stop as well. I don't think the tyres, they can make it all the way to the end, even though we've updated them just a touch. The soft tyres definitely won't anymore. But we do have the mandatory pit stops. They can take whatever compound they want, though. It doesn't have to be 2 different compounds. It could be medium-medium, it could be medium-soft, it could be hard-soft. It's completely up to them. It depends on what they think will get them to the end of the line quickest. Josh Martin goes very sideways indeed. However, he is going pretty quickly. He's in 2nd place as the time stands. In fact, I might try and bring in Rich Hayden, actually, because qualifying, there's not much to say, really. Eric Axelson's going really rather quickly. Josh Martin within 4/10 of a second of him in 2nd place, with Nicky Taylor in 3rd, Carl Felvis in 4th, and Elliot Daltonez in 5th. I'm sort of half expecting Elliot Daltonez to be a little bit quicker than that, I would say. He is going quicker in Sector 1. There he is. Very impressive at Bridgehampton. Let's see what he can muster up at Sebring here. We do have Rich. I didn't even see you come in there, Rich. Nice to have a chat with you. And well, we're past halfway in the season now. We're just talking about I was just talking about the mixed format. How do you think that's gone?
Yes, going really well, actually. I'm pretty pleased that we've come to Sebring. It's a track we've not really used much before, but it's a big challenge for these guys. The bumps at Sebring are really throwing up some curveballs to a lot of these drivers. The MX5 has been quite tame for all of the previous rounds, but it's really they're really struggling with this, especially in the last hairpin where, I'm sure you know, Sebring is extremely bumpy on the concrete going into the last hairpin, and there's some different lines that the drivers are using there, but it's catching a few people out.
I was going to say, it's not, even though it's one of the organisational favourites, it's pretty much on every calendar, isn't it, Sebring, whenever you go to America? It's not always a driver's favourite. And is that something that you were aware of as Nathan Blank hits one of those bumps, goes very sideways and catches it nicely? Is that something you were aware of, how bumpy and how unpleasant this place is to drive when you put it on the calendar?
Look, I just wanted to add something that was a little bit different. Like I said, we've not used Sebring before in one of our championships. We've done a few fun races in the past at Sebring, but you couldn't do a US tour without Sebring, could you? So
not really.
So we've thrown it in, and it's proving, as we can see by a lot of the drivers getting particularly sideways, and there's Paul Laramie going off. But it's really struggling. A couple of the drivers are really struggling. But Eric Axelson, I mean, look at the time. I mean, have you seen his practice times? 2 minute 14. He's done so well. Eric's really nailing this.
He is indeed, yeah. And I don't know. I was just saying, the practice times, you have to take them with a touch of salt, don't you? Because they are allowed to use the hybrid, which of course they're not allowed to use in qualifying. But that being said, a 2 minute 15.3, that's only about 4/10 of a second off of his practice time. And the fact that he's not allowed to use any hybrid, that's very, very impressive. There's an argument to say Eric's probably going faster now than he did in the previous couple of hours.
Yeah, look, one thing about Eric is he is extremely smooth. So that he has a big benefit with the soft tyres with his driving style, because as we know, these soft tyres really heat up. The more you slide them, the more you get the back end out, the more you understeer, the hotter the tyres get, the less grippy they get. And Eric just manages to get the car in like it's on rails. So he's really benefiting from that at the moment, his driving style. A lot of the other guys are really struggling, and in fact a few of the guys are actually going quicker on the mediums than they can on the softs because they're sliding the car too much.
Wow, 2 minute 14.8. That is as quick, if not slightly quicker, than what he just did in practice, which is, he's celebrating there, clearly. You were mentioning how smooth he was. It was so impressive going through that final corner, wasn't it? It just looked like the car wasn't moving at all, and yet when we saw, no offence to Lewis, when we saw his hot lap and the track guide, and we've seen Nathan Blank and Joel Last bouncing around the place, it was like they were driving on a different planet, wasn't it? With less gravity, they were just jumping up and down, and yet Eric is just nailing it.
And do you know what? There is a line through that. All the lines through the last corner are bumpy. All of them, regardless. However, Eric just seems to find that line where he's not upsetting the car too much and just manages to carry so much speed through the final hairpin.
Yeah, no, it's very good indeed. And just to touch on a few of the other drivers, Carl Felvis, he's in second place, quite a way off at the moment because of that absolutely blistering time by Eric. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, I believe he got the driver of the round last time out. Are we starting to see a little bit of a turnaround for him, do you think, in this championship? And is it a little bit too little too late?
Well, Kyle's going to be quick wherever he goes, right? He's a great driver, and you know, I'm so pleased that he's managing to get it up at the front as well at Sebring. So yeah, I think we should always keep an eye out for Kyle. He will always be at the sharp end. Elliot has always been, he's been there in the background, and he just needed to get a little bit consistency. He had a bit of a problem earlier on in the championship where he had a DQ for a technical. But yeah, he's gradually just improving. I'm really pleased with Elliot and how he's coming along.
We got a new driver jumping in with us tonight. He's a driver that will probably be a regular sort of name for VRRC viewers. Scott Bugner. He hasn't been in the championship this year, has he? I'm not even sure if he was in the one that we did last time out as well, in the Civics maybe. But nice to see Scott back, and he's doing pretty well. He's jumped up to 7th place. Are you expecting him to be trouncing around at the back somewhere?
Well, that's what he was telling me. So yeah, I'm really pleased that we've got Scott back. He's been absent for a while just through work commitments. He's a real life racing driver, and also is very quick in a sim as well. So really pleased that he's managed to come back. He's already signed up for our next touring car championship, and he messaged me earlier on today just saying, look, can I do the last 3 rounds of MX5? And as long as he is not interfering with the championship, and we've had a conversation about that, then I'm more than happy for him to come in. Look, he's a great driver. I don't expect him to get involved, but it's good to have him back on the grid.
Well, you just touched upon the next championship, of course. We have announced it on all our socials, everything. We haven't spoken about it too much on the broadcast yet, but it's a new touring car championship, isn't it? Sort of give us a bit of a brief rundown while we go into the last couple of minutes.
So yeah, we've done a touring car championships a few times in the past, and we've kind of literally stuck with either the Cupra on the last one, and we did the last one was with hybrid. The one before that was the Cupra without hybrid, without tyres, and it's been a long time since we've done a multi-manufacturer touring car championship. But so
League of Champions, I think, was the last one.
Yeah, it's quite a while ago. So really pleased. We've got a good pack of cars. I'm happy with the bop on the cars. There's 8 manufacturers in there, and we're basically doing another European tour. So a lot of European circuits, very similar to the TCR Europe calendar. So yeah, we've got some really good entries already. I think we're literally almost at half grid already. So that's fantastic news, and we don't click off on that till the 9th of November, I think is round 1. So really pleased on that. It's 8 manufacturers, TCR cars, and we've got things like the Lincoln Co in there, but we've got the Volkswagen, the Cooper, of course, the Honda. Every TCR car you want to see is in there, and we're going, to some of the best tracks in Europe as well, and ending at the place where you have to end a touring car championship, which is Branstad Schuppe.
Yeah, which a lot of people probably would have been watching the BTCC finale a couple of days ago as well, actually.
Indeed.
Yes, but it's brilliant. I'm very much looking forward to that, Rich. And qualifying's about to come to an end, though, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to jump back and go back into your steward's hidey hole if you want.
Okay, I shall speak to you later. Give me a shout if you need me to come back.
Thank you very much, Rich.
Cheers.
So as we go into... there we go. As we go into the last 90 seconds, Eric Axelsson, who has been in the pit lane for quite some time, actually, has decided that he's not going to improve on his lap time. To be honest, I would probably agree that he doesn't need to either. Joel Lask has jumped up into 2nd place, but he's a full second behind our current pole sitter. Josh Martin is in 5th. We're seeing him currently going around the circuit. He's not improving, no. Joel Lask has set a green Sector 2. You can see him with a potential improvement. Carl Felvis has gone green in Sector 1. Sector 2 is a little bit down, though, so it might be a bit of a struggle for him to enforce himself onto the front row. But as we see Joel Lask, we can see him fighting with the car a little bit smoother this time, though. It is a bit hot onto the entry and not so quick on the exit either. But as Joel Lask is about to come across the line, is it going to be a 2-minute 15 second lap time for him? Carl Felvis goes quicker. Carl Felvis goes onto the front row of the grid to try and challenge the seemingly impervious Eric Axelsson. And although Eric will be a bit of he'll think it's a bit of a shame to see that his championship rival Kyle will be in 2nd place alongside, he will probably take a little bit of comfort in the fact that there is still 9/10 of a second between them. Ethan Hill and Josh Martin going a little bit quicker. Ethan Hill actually didn't get any quicker sectors there, so a struggle for him. He's still in 7th place. Nicky Taylor down in 6th as well. That's not really where we expect him to be. Josh Martin comes across the line, not an improvement for him. He stays in 5th position. And whereas the checker flag has dropped, I don't think Nicky will be able to get any other lap times. I don't think Josh will either. So looks like Eric's probably going to be pretty safe, although we probably could have told you that about 5 minutes ago. Nicky Taylor, then, it's 6th place for him. He's not going particularly quickly in this Sector 1. Jens Verhoeven did improve on his time. I think he jumped up to 8th place, demoting Scott Bugner down to 9th, who was come across the start-finish line. 3.2 seconds down on the pole sitter, but he is new to the championship. He's new to this car. He's a front-wheel drive specialist, and apparently he's never driven Sebring, which I can't believe because he has been in the sim for quite some time, and every sim championship, barring VRRC pretty much, do go to Sebring nearly every other race. So yeah, impressive that he's never managed to actually finish a race here or even start one. As we're looking at Joel Lask, he has gone green in Sector 1, but so has Kyle Felvers. Both of them actually putting in a really good time at the end for the Sector 1s. Kyle Felvers has gone 2/10 quicker than Joel, actually. This could be a bit of a threat, and you can see them both on your screen now. I think that is Kyle Felvers. I don't think that is Nicky Taylor hunkered up behind. No Kyle Felvers. Yeah, there he is, in fact. So he's trying to get that slipstream from Joel Lask. Is that able to assist him? Is that going to be the spark that he needs? Joel has set a red second sector. That means he's not allowed to complete this lap, or it will be an ineligible lap because of track limits. And he's come into the pits as Kyle Felvers. What is he going to... sorry, no, Joel Lask hasn't come into the pits. Apologies. It's just a red Sector 2. Kyle Felvers comes across the line. He's in 2nd place. He'll be safely in 2nd place because Joel Lask's time from 3rd won't be eligible, even though he went green Sector 1 and green Sector 2. And just looking at his 2nd sector, actually, it was only a 10th or 2 down. So it would have been a very quick lap by Joel Lask. So he has the pace in him. He just needs to be able to do it legally. Ethan Hill comes into the pits. Elliot Daltonez as well, coming around the final corner. Not a quick time for him. And in fact, his Sector 2 is ineligible as well. So clearly some drivers struggling, as Josh Martin we see struggling on the outside of the final corner. We did see him firing a lot of speed into that final corner a couple of laps ago while we were having a chat to Rich, and maybe there's evidence that he's not quite got it as controlled as maybe some of the other drivers, as we see Kenny Press now attempt the infamous bumpy final corner. Josh Martin's still on the left-hand side. Remember, he can't go back to the pits because he will get disqualified from the session, and if his car is stationary and he can't move, then he'll be stuck. It's a very long lap time round here, so drivers who just crossed the line in time to start one final lap will be taking about 2 minutes and 14 seconds, but that looks like the session is done and dusted, so we're going to cut to a very short break before we have a chat to our pole sitter, Eric Axelson. Well, the Swedish assassin has certainly been out there killing lap times, and I'm glad to say that Eric Axelson is yet again alongside me. Normally, it's Andy McEwan who has a chat to you, Eric, but this time you're going to have to talk to me, unfortunately. But a fantastic lap by you, quite simply blistering. I think that's the biggest margin you've got pole position in VRRC championships for yourself, actually. That must feel pretty damn good to be 0.8 of a second up the road.
Hello, Jack. Yeah, that feels good. I'm quite surprised myself, to be honest, because it's a tricky track, and yeah, that was a good lap.
I was going to say, is there any secret? Have you just managed to ride the bumps well? Have you changed the setup or something? Have you hacked into the system and given yourself the hybrid boost in qualifying? Because that is what it looks like at the moment.
Well, I used mediums now in quali. I think a lot of other drivers did too, because I feel like on this track, the softs they don't reach the ideal temp, So I went with mediums, and yeah, they felt good.
Is it a particular? We know it's a bumpy track. I'm going to guess that means it's abrasive as well. Does that mean in this 40-minute race, of course, that's you're going to have to go mediums, or do you think there's any sort of way you could go for a different strategy?
Well, I think medium soft strategy could work. I think they are about equally fast on this particular track, so I think there might be several strategies that actually could work. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing which one is the best, and I'm sure you'll probably be one of the trendsetters. We've seen you absolutely nailing the start before. Carl Felvis, your championship rival, is alongside you. Does that add a little bit more pressure? Were you sort of hoping maybe Joel Lask was going to get on the front row next to you?
Well, that wouldn't. Yeah, I hope they can. Battle it out. And yeah, the start is, as always, very important, and maybe especially around this track, because yeah, it's not an easy track, and I think consistency will win today.
Are you starting to get a bit immune to being at the top of the championship as well? I mean, at the beginning of this championship, we were sort of thinking it was all very new and very exciting because you hadn't been there so dominant before. Were you a bit nervous back then? And are you a bit more comfortable with the situation you find yourself in now?
Well, after I won the last championship, I have become a lot more like calmer, and I don't feel like I need to prove anything. So I'm just trying to have fun instead.
Well, brilliant.
That works.
I was going to say, it certainly looks like it's working for you, Eric. You've only got about a minute and 15 seconds left to go before you jump into the one and only race this evening, of course. Good luck for it, and we'll let you focus.
Thank you, Jack.
So Eric Axelsson coming in to have a nice quick chat with us. As I mentioned just then, we only have about a minute before we get into the one and only race this evening. Like I've mentioned earlier, but in case you have only just tuned in for the actual race, then we are doing the 40 minutes race format today. That means basically double points are on offer, and that's inclusive of fastest lap as well. So we could see some drivers who are further down the order potentially pit in for third time, stick on those softs, try and go for one flying lap, get that fastest lap of the race, and at least it's a bit damage limitation for them. I believe actually we saw Eric do exactly that a couple of weeks ago, potentially at Road America. Unfortunately, I don't have the stats up in front of me, but I think that is a tactic that we've seen before. And in fact, it was one of the drives of the season that we saw him with that one, because it's a great recovery after being span off earlier on. So with Eric Axelsson on pole position, Carl Felvis in second, Joel Lask in third, Elliot Dalton-Ayres in fourth, and Josh Martin rounding out the top five. We're starting to hear a few rumblings of MX5, 2 litres in the background. The lights are about to come on. That can only mean one thing here at Sebring. We are racing. There we go. That was far too early, wasn't it? A little bit, but a great start by Eric Axelsson, straight on the hybrid system. Carl Felvis was as well. Joel Lask was a little bit late to the party in terms of using the hybrid, but look at the gap that Eric has managed to pull out already. 0.4 of a second to the good, and he just runs a little bit wide. That might hurt him as he kicks a lot of dust up onto the track. And in fact, look at the run that Carl Felvis has on him just as a consequence of that. Unfortunately for Carl, it's not far enough down into the next corner. But look, Eric Axelsson is feeling the pressure. He's left, he's right, he's outside, and he just about get the car gathered up. But with Carl Felvis there lurking, he's having to use the hybrid system just to get that gap back that he earned, that was so difficult to earn, off the start. Elliot Dalton-Ayres looking aggressive on the inside, going down towards the hairpin. A popular braking zone, a popular overtaking zone as well. Of course, it's a popular braking zone. You've got to brake going into there. But Elliot didn't make the move stick, and Josh Martin decided to jump on the bandwagon, go up his inside. Carl Felvis using that hybrid system to try and get away from these two battling. Josh Martin in third place. Elliot Dalton-Ayres trying to fight as if his life depends on it around the outside. late on the brakes, and he's having to concede that one as Josh Martin just about. I thought there was going to be a little bit of contact there, but I think Elliott came off the brakes or came off the throttle a little bit early, which meant Josh Martin could just about get his MX5 slotted in alongside. Joel Last sees that as a moment of weakness. Elliott Dalton Ayres, I think there's a bit of net code there. We don't normally see that on a set of course. We normally see that on iRacing. But a little bit of net code, I think, meant there was just a bit of a bump there. And Joel Last gets past Elliott Dalton Ayres and is now on the hunt for Josh Martin. Joel Last really not having the time of his life after that race start, but he's having to try and recover now. We've seen Carl Felvis already somewhat disappear into the distance. He's holding on to the back of Eric Axelson's car just about 0.6 of a second as Josh Martin hangs out the rear left wheel. I've seen that Dave in the YouTube chat, one of Josh Martin's regular followers here on the VRRC YouTube channel, was saying that he's done a bit of rallying before, so he should be used to the bumpiness. Well, Josh Martin was getting onto the grass there and the dirt, let alone the bumpiness around the final corner as Joel Last slots up his inside into said final corner. And hopefully we see Josh Martin not get too sideways. As I say that, he gets very sideways and almost enters into the pit. Is he going to be able to avoid the pits? Yes, there is no pit lane infringements here. Cars are electric, not hybrid. Either way. But Josh Martin down into 9th place, unfortunately. Scott Bugner gets past him, obviously new to the championship, and been a bit of a guest round. Sam Zero dives up his inside as well. This is a bit of a disastrous couple of corners for Josh Martin, who will probably see himself out of a race-winning opportunity now, and he'll have to think smart about his strategy for the next 40 minutes, or next 37 minutes, I should say. Carl Felvis hasn't let our race leader get away from him too much, though. I said it was about 0.6 of a second, and half a lap later, it's still about that. And in terms of hybrid usage, they're using about the same. 13 to go for both of them. Joel Last in 3rd place has used a touch more, but that's because he's been having to gain positions back on other drivers around him. Ethan Hill getting nicely sideways with Elliott Dalton Ayres. Very nice sort of battling between these two drivers. I remember we saw Ethan Hill at Bridgehampton last week getting very, very elbows out, shall we say, and nicely into the thick of a lot of battles. It just didn't come off for him, and I'm sure he's hoping here that he can sort of do similar things. And it's a lot of experience for Ethan Hill that he's battling towards the top 5 of these races. And remember, double points. He only needs to finish 5th in one race tonight to get all of those lovely juicy points. I believe we have potentially muted car noises. Unfortunately, we'll see if we can get that unregulated for you. And I think I've just seen that it's switched on, so hopefully the cars are not silent for you anymore. That's a little bit awkward. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of a... Oh, dear me, Elliott Dalton Ayres. We saw Josh Martin kicking up a lot of dust about a lap ago. Well, Elliott Dalton Ayres has just kicked up an awful lot of dust and got it very sideways, but luckily kept it out the wall. So Ethan Hill does get past. Elliott Dalton Ayres has to settle down into 6th place and do all the hard work again to try and catch up to the top 5. Eric Axelsson, even though he's feeling a little bit of pressure from the driver behind, he is setting purple lap times. And he's just put in a 2-minute 15.7. 3 purple sectors. Good enough for him to pull now a 2nd gap. And, well, he said that he's feeling quite relaxed now in the championship running. He's probably can afford to just chill out a bit. And when he knows he got this much pace, it does always help after all. Scott Bugner in the VRRC liveried car, down in 9th place with Jens Verhoeven just ahead of him in 8th. Struggling a little bit, I would say, Scott Bugner to get up to speed, but to be fair, I think he only did about 5 laps as he gets very loose. Josh Martin tries to take advantage. Remember, we have, well, see Scott Bugner off the road a bit, but we have told Scott Bugner that not to get involved in any big championship fights. And to be honest, Josh Martin would probably argue that he is in a championship fight. Remember, we do have prizes here at VRRC, and they're worth quite a lot of money. Different versions of AOC gaming monitors up for grabs. I think a 27-inch, a 32-inch, and a 34-inch. And so, you know, when those sort of prizes are up for grabs for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, you don't want anybody coming in, ruining your opportunity, ruining your championship. And, well, Scott Bugner, I'm sure, will appreciate that. He's been in many a championship with us before. He knows the drill. He knows the deal, and he doesn't want to get involved with upsetting anybody as he's here only for 3 rounds. Because, of course, they're going into the Touring Car Championship. He definitely doesn't want anybody on his bad side hitting him out of the way in that particular one. Josh Martin in behind Jens Verhoeven, and Jens not really been at the forefront of our sort of thoughts over the course of this championship. Unfortunately, he's not quite had the pace. I think he's one of the drivers that only did single-figure practice times at Sebring for the round 6, and it maybe just goes to show sometimes drivers just don't have the time to go out and practice. To be fair, there wasn't a lot of laps being put on. I think at Bridgehampton we were seeing potentially over 200 laps in practice. I think the most we saw going into Sebring was only about 77, which just goes to show that either drivers weren't committed to practicing it, maybe they knew the track better already, or maybe they just didn't like driving it, and they found that it was a little bit too inconsistent, it was a little bit painful. I can imagine if you have a direct drive wheel and you are going over these bumps consistently, then it would start to tire you out. But at the moment, with 32 minutes in, everybody's just giving themselves a little bit of a gap. But one driver who's tried to pull it back slightly over the last couple of laps is Carl Felvis. He's he's got one more hybrid than Eric Axelsen, and he's pulled back about 0.2 of a second, which is pretty impressive, I would say, considering he's in second in the championship. And if we look at his drop scores, actually, he's got a little bit more leeway. He's one of the most consistent drivers in the championship, is Carl Felvis. He's come in second or third pretty much every single race so far, and his drop score, well, it was still a third place finish, or fourth place finish, I believe, for Carl Felvis. So that's very impressive indeed. He has a little bit more wiggle room than Eric Axelsen in terms of drop scores. Alok Iyengar is off the circuit. I'm not entirely sure how he's managed that one, but that is pretty much the end to any potential good race that he had coming his way, as Josh Martin tries to go around the outside of Jens Verhoeven. Jens is not a back marker, even though Josh Martin is probably just out of position. Oh, as he gets a wheel loose, is he going to be able to hold that? That'd be very impressive if he does. He just about keeps it on the circuit. Not good enough to keep Scott Bugner from going past him, but good enough to pretty much say that he's still in with a chance in this race. Everybody starts on the medium tyre, by the way, if anybody was wondering out there what strategies would occur. And because no one's had any big crashes, we haven't needed to see anybody coming into the pit lane for the time being to maybe switch on to those mediums, to switch on to those softs. So we are pretty much all level as it stands. Thank you very much for everybody who's tuning in and giving a comment on the live stream. Apparently, Adrian Felvis and Dave are chatting about different rally schools, different rally lessons or something that they've been on. Adrian driving escorts and Subarus around the woods for a day at London Rally School. He said it wouldn't help, though, with driving MX5 over speed bumps. Well, you never know, Adrian. It's all about getting loose on the rear end, isn't it? And, well, a few of these drivers are certainly nailing that, including your son, actually. I'm sure he's doing you very proud. Maybe you gave him a few tips. I'll give you some credit on that one. Although he probably wasn't listening to them, seeing as he's a teenager. Kyle, in fact, sort of speaking of him, 1.2 seconds down the road now. So either Eric is turning it on. He did just go purple in sector 2. Or Kyle is struggling just at such. Well, on that previous lap, it's only a 10th down. And I believe I've heard a ding in my ear that is the impending sound of a Rich Hayden. Rich, you've joined us. How the first 10 minutes been from your perspective?
Yeah, it's going pretty well, actually. I've been watching. I've been keeping a close eye on Eric and Kyle, just to try and see what their driving style is like, how they're going to be taking the tyre wear through on this car for the first stint. And actually, I have to say that both drivers are being pretty smooth. So the reason why I stopped to watch it is because I know Eric's smooth. I know Kyle likes, obviously Kyle's a drifter, right? Kyle loves his drifting, so I was thinking, if he's going to get this car pretty loose, is he going to start going through the tyres quicker? But he's being very smooth and very precise. So what do you think? What do you think we're going to do with regards to the pit strategy here? We've got 29 minutes to go. They're on mediums. I'm guessing they're going to go for mediums again at the end and maybe split it in two, or do you think they'll go long with softs, or what?
Well, we've seen quite a few drivers in the past, haven't we, Rich? Go very religious on the 20-minute mark
yes.
In terms of just split the race in half. It's the easiest thing to do. We'll stick mediums on. Normally, a few of the drivers, say, I think it was Eric Axelsen last time he had a 40-minute race. He ended up having to come into the pits prematurely, didn't he? Which sort of changed his strategy up slightly.
Yeah, absolutely.
pushing a little bit too hard on the outside. So, yeah, I would imagine most people, they qualified on the median side. That means they're just going to try and split the race in half, which is a bit of a dull strategy, isn't it, Rich? We were hoping for a little bit more spice, but at the end of the day, if it's what is the fastest, then you've got to do it.
Do you know our problem? Andy Carroll's on holiday. He normally gives us something spicy. He gives us something spicy on strategy, doesn't he? So, so yeah, unfortunately, he's sunning himself this week. So I hope Andy is having a good time out there on holiday. But yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of, if somebody pits now, they're gonna come out. I mean, not right at the back because Alok's obviously had half a spin and he's quite far behind. So they'll come out at the back of the pack, but in front of Alok. So there'll be, yeah, it depends, I don't know, it depends. If it was me, I would probably go longer and do softs at the end, just to do something a little bit different.
Well, I was going to say, that could shake a few, or give some people some headaches, that really could, couldn't it?
Yes,
And that's what you sort of want, isn't it? Especially if you're the likes of Kyle and Eric, who's so fast. Not been able to pull away, though, which is quite impressive from Eric's perspective. And another driver that I'm quite impressed with, actually, is Kyle's teammate, Nicky Taylor. Ahead of Joel last, who had a bit of a nightmare start, didn't he, for whatever reason. And Nicky's managed to take advantage of that.
Yeah, Nicky's now up to third, right? So
Yes.
it's just past Joel last. So yeah, that's quite interesting. It looks like Nicky's starting to get his feet at Sebring because he freely admitted himself he'd been struggling in practice. So good on Nicky coming on strong in the race.
He is indeed, yeah, and we've seen quite a few people hanging the rear end out a little bit on certain corners, particularly onto the back straight, haven't we, just before the final corner. Is that something that you sort of noticed when you were setting up the car, when you were testing around Sebring? Is that a corner that particularly is very difficult?
Do you know what? It's this car, because we do a fixed setup. I mean, look, ideally, you know, this car needs some work on the suspension for this track. It needs to, so we can swallow the bumps. But because we want a fixed setup in the championship to try and level it out for everybody, you can't do that. The setup has to be like a vanilla for the whole of the championship. So yeah, it is struggling on the bumps around here, but there's some great prizes on offer, right? So it has to be difficult.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And that's why we like to keep it as difficult as possible, like you just mentioned. And I think that is fair enough. It's about the drivers getting out there, practicing, and making sure that they are prepared for this particular challenge and whatever challenge that might throw at them. We didn't see a lot of practice laps, though. I was mentioning this just before, Rich. We saw over 200 for Bridgehampton. We saw about 70 for this one at most. Is that because people are just not as enjoying the track as much, or because it's a longer lap? They not.
I think it's a longer lap, which obviously I think it's almost double the length of Bridgehampton. So. That will have an impact on it, and you know what? It is a difficult track. So you know, it's one of those tracks where you can go out, and if you don't build your speed up and you just go straight out onto a fast lap, you're going to put it in a wall, you're going to spin it, you're going to do something. And if you're doing that time after time, it probably gets a little bit frustrating on your practice laps. But yeah, I mean...
sorry, Rich, cutting across you. Jens Verhoeven has just come a cropper, and well, he did it in a rather dramatic style as well. These MX5s are built strong. I'm not entirely sure they're going to be built that strong, though. It looks like he's getting back going and no sort of crabbing. And just on that, we've seen a lot of contact over the course of the championship, as sim racing often does. But the damage model on MX5s, or on this particular car, they seem to be pretty sturdy, don't they? Is that something that you quite liked and why you picked the car? Yeah,
look, you know, that you're always going to get contact, whether it's rubbing or nose to tail. It's going to happen. We obviously try and limit it as much as possible. You know, we have our safety rating and our driver ranking system that penalises drivers that are a little bit more robust in their driving style. But you're always going to get it. So it was really important that we had a car that could take a little bit of damage, and also, you know, a little bit of door rubbing. It's not going to fire people off into the barriers. So the MX5's been standing up quite well.
Is that something that you quite often look at whenever you're organising championships? Because, of course, there's 1,000 cars that you can pick from, really, when putting a championship on. We do tend to go for the touring car style tin-top races, don't we? The MX5s, the touring cars, the Civics and stuff like that, even the GT4s back in the League of Champions and stuff. Is that because you found that they just perform best in terms of a racing situation?
So... look, there's loads of factors we look at. One thing that we try and do is we try and mix it up as best we can between front and rear wheel drive. And it's, you know, we try and pick the popular formats, so we know we're going to get a lot of people entering for the championships. It's a popular car, popular format. You know, we we played around with the car a little bit to make it a little bit more interesting. Touring car championships, you will fill all the time. They're just so popular, and obviously we're quite good at running them, so that helps. But one thing that we would like to do more of, we'd like to do more Formula stuff. I mean, we've got the time attack going on at the moment, which is actually proving quite popular. So we may end up doing some sort of single-seater championship in the future soon too.
Well, we did. We used to do the VRRC Academy, of course, back in the day, didn't we? When I was first started commentating for you, and alongside the League of Champions, and that was a mixture of cars. We had the MX5s with the basic version, didn't we? We had the Caterhams, I believe, and I believe there was a Formula car on there. So it's not like we've never delved into those sort of opportunities, but it's been a while since we've seen them in a fully fledged championship.
That's right. Yeah, the Formula 4 championship we did during Academy was actually quite popular. The problem with, and I'm going to be trying to be as delicate as I can here, the problem with the Formula cars is the faster you go, the more difficult it is, and the more incidents you generally tend to have. So it's like the lower Formula 4, Formula 3 actually is more popular in general than the Formula 2, Formula 1 stuff, because the Formula 2, Formula 1, let's face it, they're really difficult to get those things going really quickly. Especially for me, my brain just can't keep up. Yeah. So the Formula 3, Formula 4 does tend to be more popular in the masses. So we'll probably do something like that. And yeah, still trying to formulate in my mind what we're going to do, but I want to do something different. I just don't want to do a normal Formula Championship. I want to do something slightly different. So leave it with me. Let my creative juices flow.
Well, I was going to say, I was just going to let you have those creative juices flowing for the next 30 seconds, because I was going to say that Joel Lask has been all over the back of Nicky Taylor for the past lap or so, lap and a half potentially. But unfortunately, he's just chucked it off in the second to last corner, which has meant that he's dropped back from Nicky Taylor now quite substantially. And that will be a bit of a breath of fresh air for the HFT car, because he was under an enormous amount of pressure, but he managed to hold it off for the time being. I'm sure Joel Lask will be back at them, but we're got to get to that point probably in the next lap or so, where we're starting to see some drivers come into the pit lane. And, is that what you would expect, Rich?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think people will. I mean, that's what we've seen in the past in double distance races that we've done. Is that people are just generally tending to do their pit stop around between 18 and 22 minutes, so splitting the race in two. But yeah, let's hope some people do something slightly different to make it more interesting, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we've had anybody in the pits. Oh, as I say that, Sam Zero decides to be the first driver to jump into the pits. Sam had an interesting first couple of laps, but he is ahead of the likes of Jens Verhoeven and stuff like that. So as he comes in, what tyres is he going to put on? I would imagine, Rich, it was going to be the mediums, but as you mentioned already, the softs could be a potential, but I think it'd be a bit of a risk.
Let's have a look. Is he on mediums, is he?
Probably so. Paul Laramie's coming to the pits as well, so they clearly want to get in and get it done as quickly as possible. And Sam Zero, as soon as he finishes the pit lane, there we go, on medium tyres. So we did have a bit of a play with the softs, didn't we? About midway through, well, about a third of the way through this season. Rich, have they actually performed to what you were expecting, what you were hoping of?
Yeah, the one thing that was happening with the softs is they were just the reason why we played with them slightly is they were just lasting too long. We just wanted to basically reduce the life of the softs and also play with the heat soak on them a little bit, just to change the characteristics of the tyre, which basically is if you slide that tyre, it will heat up quite quickly, which is what would happen in real life on a soft tyre. They're quite prone to overheating if you are on a slide, and that's what I wanted to do. So that's what we've got now. It just so happens that it's just not the right tyre for this track, just because of the amount of bumps and the amount of sliding that the cars are doing. The softs is just not an option. Yeah,
and so we saw Iyengar going side by side with Sam Zero. Actually, Sam wasn't able to get the move done, but A-Lock obviously had that spin earlier on. He will have to come into the pit lane, so Sam is in theory ahead of A-Lock, but at the moment and fully within his right, he's having a little bit of a challenge and trying to just fight off Sam Zero to enjoy himself, I guess, a little bit, because at the end of the day, Rich, sim racing, although we like to take it seriously and the drivers like to take it seriously and there's serious prizes up for offer, it is a fun thing to do, isn't it? It's a hobby for a lot of these drivers,
Yes.
and sometimes some people can forget that, and it's always interesting when we put it back into perspective of, you know, we're just trying to enjoy the championship, and that's exactly what Eric Axelsen said when he came in for his interview just then. We said about him being on the top of the championship. Does that put pressure on him? But he said after he won it last year, he's actually just going out and enjoying it now, and he thinks that he's actually performing much better.
Yeah, exactly right. Hey, look, here's something interesting. Last lap, Eric Axelsen 2 minutes 16.2, Carl Felvers 2 minutes 15.6, and Kyle setting green sectors as well. So Kyle is definitely looking after those tyres.
He is indeed, and we thought for a couple of laps that he was actually being dropped by Eric Axelsen, but it hasn't been the case. In fact, a lot of people have started to come into the pit lane, but not any of the top 4. Joel Lask on that last lap, what was he putting in? A 2 minutes 16.1, a full 1.1 seconds quicker than Nicky Taylor. So even though Joel had that little bit of an off, he hasn't put him off pushing as hard as he possibly can. To be fair, Nicky is going particularly slowly for some reason out of the top 4 at the moment. Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Nathan Blank going into the heavy braking zone are going to do it side by side. In fact, is Ethan Hill going to try and make it 3 wide? It would be ill-advised, as it looks like he's just about held on to the back of Elliot Dalton-Ayres and decided not to get too much involved. He is hoping to probably follow one of these drivers through. Elliot Dalton-Ayres in the number 84 does manage to find his way through on Nathan Blank, who decides to jump straight on the hybrid to try and fight back. I don't think it's going to be enough, though, as they run through the tricky infield section. Problem is, as well, Rich, if you start using your hybrid in places where you don't normally, or it's unconventional, you'll arrive at some of these fast-flowing corners that are extremely unforgiving here at Sebring at completely different speeds, and that could ruin your entire run through the sector.
Absolutely. Look, I'm just seeing Eric's in the pits.
Oh, he is? Yeah, so
He is.
Eric, somewhere behind all those RVs, Eric Axelsen is in the pit lane. Carl Felvers has stayed out, though, so Carl is heading to the race lead.
Yeah. So, look, in answer to your question, yeah, absolutely. If you're on hybrid on a part of the track that you wouldn't normally be on hybrid, then you're going to be arriving into corners a lot quicker. Your braking point's going to be different. So yeah, it's not advisable to be using the hybrid in the short straight areas going into, especially going into bends as well. It could put you off your rhythm, if so to speak.
Yeah, Nathan Blank getting a little bit ruined in terms of he's ruining the last part of his lap, unfortunately, by breaking track limits, and Ethan Hill is trying to take advantage of that. There's a big slide, massive slide, he catches it, he doesn't touch the wall. Yes, he does touch the wall, actually. We were riding on board, we didn't quite catch that. He does a full 360 and carries on. We didn't catch a brilliant angle on whether there was any major contact, but it certainly looked like the car kicked out unconventionally a bit more than was probably necessary. So Ethan Hill and Nathan Blank didn't survive coming across the line together, as we saw most of the top 4 coming into the pit lane, by the way. I think Josh Martin even did as well, so most of the top 5. Josh has come out in 8th place. Joel Lask has come out in 5th. Jens Verhoeven's taking 4th place. Eric Axelsen, though, he's in 3rd place, and he's 30 seconds back from Kyle Felvers. This is about the time where Kyle really needs to put the hammer down. Can he get a good in-lap? Can he use some of those hybrids to his advantage? Impressively, though, and I'm not sure whether it's a 2-part question, Rich. Impressive that Nicky Taylor has still got 12 hybrids left compared to most of the drivers around him who have only got single figures. In fact, Eric Axelsen only got 6. But following on from that, does Kenny Press ever use the hybrid? I don't think I've seen a race where he's had less than 15 uses of the hybrid left towards the end.
To answer your question, Kenny has not bound the button to his steering wheel, and no matter how many times I remind him, he never does.
Okay, well, it might help him if he did. That's the thing. I mean, he's not a slow driver. We've seen him in other formulas, like the Civic Cup, have good reverse grid racing. The problem is if he doesn't find it.
Kyle, sorry to cut over there. Kyle's in the pits.
Yeah, so Kyle Felvers into the pit lane, and so is his teammate Nicky Taylor.
Yeah.
Now, are they going to work together? I mean, Bridgehampton, it was a very impressive second race, wasn't it? That reverse grid race with Nicky and Kyle. We almost gave Kyle Felvers the driver of the round pretty much for that entire second race. But we definitely sort of gave HFT a special nod, didn't we? Because it was very impressive by those 2 individuals to work as a team against the likes of Eric Axelsen. Are we going to see a similar story, do you expect here, Rich, today? Because Eric is about to go past and Kyle is still stationary. He's just gotten going now, and I think he's going to come out behind. You can see them on screen now underneath the Chevrolet
Oh, that's
banner.
close.
It's going to be close, but it is going to be Eric Axelsson who will hold on to that race lead, and I think he's extended it.
Yeah, look, I was watching Eric all the way down the back straight there, coming into the final hairpin, and he had a sideways moment into that final hairpin. I was like a little bit worried for him, but no, he's got it in the back here, I think.
Yeah, 3 seconds the good, isn't it? It's quite a comfortable margin, and he'll probably be looking at his rearview mirror thinking he can relax a little bit now. We are into the last 14 minutes of this particular race, and I do have to thank you, Rich, for coming in and having a chat to us. It's been very interesting, and it's
You're
helped me
welcome.
out a little bit. 40 minutes solo commentary. It can be a touch dull for the viewers, but hopefully you've brought a little bit of a spark into their life today.
Never leave a man down.
Yeah, exactly. As Kenny Press seems to be deciding that he wants to take the rallycross route, and his car is looking a little bit rough. I think he's just waiting for everybody to get past him before he safely rejoins, and that's quite a respectful thing to do, to be fair, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we did have a long conversation with all the drivers in the driver briefing about re-entering the track and making sure that you do it in a safe manner. So, well done, Kenny. He listened.
He did indeed. Yeah, Kenny Press, one of those drivers that have been around, I think, in the VRRC for longer than I have, Rich. And it's quite nice to see those sort of potential of drivers. I think it goes to show that a lot of drivers are keen to carry on and race with such a high quality of drivers around them.
Do you know what? We're really lucky. We have some fantastic guys that have been with us pretty much from the beginning, right? So people like Andy Carroll, Paul Laramie, Kenny Press, and a few other guys have been with us for, a couple of years, if not more. So, we're really lucky to have them, and we'll continue to try and make sure that they stay with us as well.
Yeah, well, of course, we have quite a few newcomers to VRRC. When I say newcomers, I'm talking even about the likes of Kyle Felvis and people like that who are sort of been with us for about a year now, but they might not know about the history of VRRC. And I was just wondering, when did it start? You're talking about people who've been with you since the beginning. When was the beginning for you?
The beginning was 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago. I decided to do something a little bit different to what I did before, what my normal job was, and decided to get into simulation and try and make simulation more commonplace within motorsport, and esports has become part of that as well. So we continue to build sims for motorsport, for homes, for drivers, for teams, for everybody that want to sim offers. We continue to do that, and we've been doing it quite well over the last 3 or 4 years. We've been doing that, and we're still doing a driver coaching with a driver performance centre based at Silverstone. We do a lot of driver coaching on track, in sim, in person, online, and obviously we quite like doing this as well. It's a little bit of an indulgence for us doing the sim racing.
I was going to say, but that sort of the sim racing does mean that you keep in constant contact with a lot of these drivers as well. And there's a lot of drivers that you've mentioned that are real life racers as well that we've sort of attracted, and even drivers that have come and gone in these championships, the likes of Jordan Brennan and Max Edmondson and people like that who are obviously Civic Cup drivers. And it just goes to show, I think, it's almost like when one person sees a real life driver in a championship, they want to get involved, don't they, and see how good they are compared to those real life racers. And that's something that VRRC has done really well in attracting those sort of names. Yeah,
thank you. I mean, look, we because of everything that we do within motorsport, we've got a good connection, a good network of drivers that we work with on lots of different things. So, we've been lucky enough to have, national champions in different disciplines race with us, but also we've had international champions. We've had double 24-hour Le Mans winners. Tommy Erdos raced with us for a couple of races as well. We've had Aston Martin drivers, you name it, we've had it. So we've been really lucky to attract some of the racing drivers from club level up to international level, and we like to do that and get everybody to be able to race alongside. I think it's a good thing to do.
It is indeed, as Scott Bugner's finally finding his feet, I would say, and using that hybrid button to good use as well as he gets past Sam Zero, who has found himself having a good little battle with not Jens Verhoeven, Kenny Press for the majority of the last 5 or so minutes since he's come out the pit lane. And it's nice to see that anywhere up and down the grid, there is a good scrap, isn't there? And that's the thing, there are drivers who are fighting right at the sharp end, i.e. Eric Axelsson, Carl Felvis, occasionally Joel Lask up there as well. But even when you sort of shoot the cameras back to the rear end of the field, it's still extremely close, and you can sort of tell the drivers are driving with a smile on their face, or maybe not immediately, but they're hoping they'll have a smile on their face come the end.
Yeah, look, we have our driver ranking system which applies a handicap ballast depending on the success of a driver in our championships, but we also have the championship success ballast as well on top of that. So, when we start a new championship, round one isn't everybody has no ballast, because you carry the ballast from our driver ranking system, which is updated weekly. So if you are at the top of the driver ranking system, a level 5 driver, which is the highest level, you'll carry 25 kilograms of ballast into every single race that you do with us. But then we also have the championship ballast, so if you're first in the championship, you also carry another 25 kilos. So we try and do that to not make it prohibitive or difficult for the drivers to make the cars undrivable. The 50 kilos actually works really well with most cars, but we do it so that everybody gets the chance to drive and against all levels of drivers, and also it makes it not an open, it makes the championship open so that we can get lots of different people that potentially could win.
Yeah, speaking of which, remember when Eric Axelsen came out the pit lane and he was 3 seconds ahead of Carl Felvers?
Yeah.
Well, it's 1.7 now. It's those last lap times for Carl Felvers have been it's not like he's gained half a second out of nowhere. He's been edging his way closer every single lap by 1 or 2 tenths of a second. And speaking of Carl Felvers, Adrian's been in the YouTube chat as well and put some nice messages about VRRC as a whole, and obviously the history of it and everything like that. So I'll let you go and have a peruse through them in a couple of minutes' time, Rich, with some nice messages there from Adrian. So thank you very much to him and everybody else who's been tuning in over the years as well. We've seen VRRC go through a couple of changes of championships. They've all provided exactly the same fantastic racing, so we're very grateful for the drivers and you guys at home for supporting the channels as well. As Kenny Press, who's been through most of the championships, like we mentioned already, is also going through the track limits and not taking the corners, unfortunately. Jens Verhoeven gets past him after Sam Zero did a couple of laps ago. And, well, as I said before, I think Kenny Press probably would be a little bit more competitive if he actually bound that hybrid button, because a lot of the drivers around him, Sam Zero is the first one actually on the entire grid to have used all 15 with 7 minutes to go. And if Kenny Press all of a sudden just stopped his car, bound that key, and all of a sudden got going again, he could probably find a fair few seconds, actually. Speaking of the different tyres and the strategies, Rich, all of them have gone medium, haven't they? So, I mean, it's unsurprising. It's just the nature of Sebring. But it's a bit of a shame that we didn't have, like you said, Andy Carroll would have probably done something different.
Yeah, I think Andy would have probably gone medium softs. It's just the way that the Sebring circuit is. The softs are just not an option here. They just, unless, like I said, unless you drive the car on rails, do not slide it. The softs just go off very quickly and overheat. And then when you look at what your other options are, the mediums are a great tyre. The hard are just probably about half a second slower than the mediums, and the mediums can last half race distance. So it's it's an obvious choice then, isn't it? Medium.
It is indeed. And one thing I wanted to get your opinion on air as well, so we can have you on record, is I was wondering, obviously we've done a lot of touring cars and we've done a lot of, we talked about all the championships that we've done, the League of Champions, the Academies, the championships that we do now, obviously that sprint / double sprint, double sprint distances. At the moment, obviously, there was a rumor, there was a rumbling, I would say, there was a thought that you aired once to us after one of the broadcasts, about a potential GT championship. You guys have never delved into that sort of area, and as we see Jens Verhoeven diving up the inside for Sam Zero, I'll let you prepare your thoughts on that one just for a second, because he's all over the back of Sam, and Sam has had to concede the place because I think he just felt the pressure a little bit too much. Scott Bugner, just ahead of him, has pulled over a nice 3-second gap between these two drivers as they battle it out. In 11th place is Jens Verhoeven, but he goes very sideways, and I think Sam Zero is going to have another opportunity to launch up his inside. No, he decides to go for a long sweeping cutback, and there's a driver who's on the outside of the circuit. That's Alok Iyengar. I'm not entirely sure if Alok has actually come into the pits. He hasn't, and I don't think Kenny Press has either. But I'm going to now press you for an answer. Rich, GT racing for VRRC. Is this something we'll ever see?
Yes.
Oh, that's more of a commanding yes than I've had before off you.
So look, let me tell you a little bit about GT racing. We have done GT4 Championship in the past, and we
in a sprint format though.
In a sprint format, yes. The only issue we had with that is that the balance of power across the number of manufacturers that we have wasn't great.
No.
So it wasn't too bad, but it wasn't great. And it's really important for me that everybody knows that they are in cars that are equal performance, etc., etc. Because the last thing we want is people getting into the scenario where they think Joe Bloggs in the Mercedes is got a faster car than the Will Smith in the Audi. So it's been we kind of left them alone for a bit just to make sure that the pack of cars is nicely bopped. So we do have an option where we could run a GT3, GT4 championship, 2 classifications, 1 manufacturer in each classification, or we could just run a GT4 championship with 1 manufacturer. But it is nice to have all of the cars in there. So when I am happy that the cars are equal performance, give or take, depending on circuits, we'll run another GT4 and we'll do an endurance one. Well, actually, when I say endurance, what I clearly mean is a double distance.
A double distance. Well, I was going to say, considering you have in your commentary team, not me, but the lead British GT commentator, I feel like it would be a bit of a letdown if we never did it, to be honest, at VRRC. But yeah, the double distance seems to be a good little hybrid, doesn't it? I mean, tonight, let's face it, it hasn't been the most exciting in terms of on-track action that we've ever seen. There's been some good battles, but there hasn't been that sort of drama that we quite often see. But to be honest, in the sprint races, we probably wouldn't have seen much different, would we? Because there wasn't that much drama at the beginning of this particular race.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right. Yeah, this race is a challenge for the drivers. So this is the guy. Yes, exactly. And yeah, it's not given us a great strategy with regards to the pit stops, but it's difficult for them, and that's what we wanted it to be. So, as a result, it's done its job. With regards to the GT Championship, yeah, let's do something GT4. Let's do something maybe 60-minute races with mandatory pit stops, mandatory change tyre compounds. Oh, there's lots of things we can do, isn't there? So, yeah. Leave it with me. Next championship is touring car. That takes us to the end of the year. Maybe we kick off 2023 with a GT4 Endurance Championship.
Well, that would be very exciting indeed. There's only 2 minutes to go, Rich. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let you go back to your ID hole and get ready. But is there actually, I'll tell you what. I'll let you put it in your driver of the day because you're a commentator now. I'll let you put your driver of the day vote into the VRRC broadcast Discord, and we'll try and announce that a little later.
All right. Cheers. Speak to you later.
Thanks very much, Rich. And that was Rich Hayden, who's joined me for the majority of this broadcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to us. It did turn into a bit of a podcast towards the end, but that's not entirely a bad thing. It's quite often the way I like to do endurance races, to be honest. And seeing as everybody is fixated on calling these double distance races endurances, I thought we might as well lean into it just a touch. But I hope everybody enjoyed listening to the plans of VRRC and sort of a little bit of the history about it, and hearing Rich's thoughts about here, there, and everywhere, and obviously some of the drivers out there having good battles in the background as well. Maybe if we do this again, we can do a little bit of maybe that's an idea for VRRC podcast. Get the drivers in on the fun races on a Sunday night and just chat about all things motorsport. It'd be quite a good fun, actually. But at the moment, Alex Axelsson in the lead of this race. 2 minute 15.4 is the time he's just staying. But Carl Felvers, only 1.6 seconds back. He's just set a green sector 2, but more impressively, a purple sector 3, and he has 1 hybrid left. He's closed the gap to 1.3 seconds. Now, I'm not 100% convinced that's going to be enough, as this is the final lap of the race, but what we can say is Kyle has been absolutely flying in this race. Now, we didn't give him a hope in hell. I'll be honest, I really didn't. Normally, we would try to hide away from that one, but I'm going to be so bold to say I didn't give him a chance in this one because of how quick Eric Axelsson was in qualifying and how no one else really got close. I thought Kyle and Joel Lask were going to be fighting and scrapping over second place, but for the entirety of this race, yes, Eric has been the class of the field, but Kyle has been a lot closer. If Eric Axelsson has performed to a 10 out of 10 rating, Carl Felvers has been a 9.5 out of 10. So, yeah, very impressive from him. Nicky Taylor, his teammate, has done very well to get up to 3rd place as well. Joel Lask, an evening where it could have been a little bit better for him. Probably he would have enjoyed maybe another chance at the sprint race, the reverse grid and everything like that. But it is what it is. You've got to deal with what you got to do. And I would probably, just reading the broadcast chat as well, I'll come on to what that says in a couple of minutes' time. I know quite a few of us quite a few of you, sorry, in the YouTube chat, for saying that potentially Kyle or Nikki for driver of the day. I'll probably say there's an inkling where one of them might be one of the favoured candidates in the broadcast booth as well for the potential driver of the day. It is now down to less than a second. In fact, as I said, I don't think Carl Felvers is really going to have the speed, but Eric Axelsson, who's probably feeling the pressure of that final corner, it's a very, very difficult final corner, and although he's been absolutely nailing it, you never know, one small mistake, and within 0.6 of a second, Carl Felvers is there to mop up the pieces. But for the final time this evening at Sebring, it's going to be Eric Axelsson who will cross the line first. There's less than half a second in it now, but it is Eric Axelsson who takes the checkered flag with Carl Felvers in second place, as he is most times in this particular championship. And Nicky Taylor, his HFT teammate, comes across the line in third, with Joel Lask will be in fourth place. And I'm just going to give you the rundown of the order as Elliot Daltonez finishes in 5th. Josh Martin comes home in 6th in the end. A good recovery drive for Josh, because he did have a little bit of a difficult first third of the race. Ethan Hill through on the final corner. Nathan Blank as well in a corner where he's been struggling with. And quite a few drivers haven't actually used up their entirety of their hybrid. That might be because they haven't got onto the final back straight yet. Jens Verhoeven has got 2 in his back pocket, and probably looking back, should have used both of them really to try and catch up to Scott Bugner. But Scott Bugner, not really part of this championship, and sort of almost guest starring. I'm not even entirely sure whether he'll score points technically, but Jens Verhoeven comes across the line to round out the top 10. Sam Zero, who had an eventful race, actually probably got more airtime than he's ever had before, to be honest, and hopefully he's enjoyed it. John Jones in the back straight now as well. Right, just as these drivers are starting to finish up, I'm probably going to start having an interview, because a lot of the drivers are already jumping into the commentary box. And actually, I've just remembered, these 40-minute races, they always throw us off in terms of the order of proceedings, shall we say. But we do have a very quick advert to show you before we jump into the interview before we go into the interviews. So we'll just wait for Kenny Press, who, as I said, has good raw pace, just doesn't seem to have the technology to help him out at all. Alok Iyengar. Did Alok come into the pits at all? Yeah, he came into the pits 2 laps ago. So he ran those mediums, and I don't know whether he went for the fastest lap of the race. Either way, he didn't get it with the 2 minutes 17. Anyway, that is all we have time for in terms of the actual race. We're going to go to a very quick advert break, and then we'll be back for the driver interviews. And we're back in the room, and the room contains 3 podium sitters as well. We're going to go for our first place driver, and it's a person we've already spoken to once today and about 17,000 times during the course of this season as well. It's Eric Axelsson. Eric, that looked like, I would say, a calm and relaxed sort of driving style from you, but it really wasn't as easy as we were expecting going into the race, was it? Carl Felvers really did keep you honest.
Yeah, it sure wasn't easy. He was, he was within the same like 1 to 3 seconds the whole race. When after the start, I was all over the place the first like 2-3 laps. I don't know if it was because the car was so heavy with the fuel and the extra weight I got, but yeah, it was everywhere.
I was going to say, your start off the line is as classic as it ever is in terms of very, very quick. But as soon as you got into those first couple of corners, we saw that rear end shaking about a bit. And I was sat here in the commentary box thinking, that's very un-Eric Axelsson-like. Is that because the car just didn't really react? Had you done much preparation on race pace, sort of race trim, in terms of a setup before? Or was that a complete surprise to you?
I mean, the setup is the same, but I hadn't tried with like a full race fuel before, so I think that may have been maybe the difference. But other than that, setup's the same. Yeah.
Well, in a crucial part of that race for you was you pitted in, I think it was 2 laps earlier than Kyle, didn't you? And you really did put the hammer down for those 2 laps. I think the gap was 1 second as Kyle came into the pit. And I think when he came out, it was 3 seconds. Was that a period of the race that you knew was going to be vitally important?
Yeah, I was scared that he was trying to undercut me there, so I put in a few extra hybrids to make sure that he wasn't going, that I wasn't working. But I think, yeah. Then in the end, like on the last lap, I missed the gear a couple of times actually, and yeah, so the last lap was really really scary, really dramatic.
I was going to say, because you went from about 1.6 seconds in the lead down to half a second over the line, and I thought maybe he's just taking it easy. Maybe Kyle is using some hybrids. I'm not entirely sure. Was it you feeling the pressure then? Because that's unusual. You don't normally feel the pressure in this championship.
No, but yeah, I really felt it on the last laps, because I felt like he was creeping onto me, and I didn't know how many hybrids he had left, probably more than me, you know. And yeah, small mistakes here and there, and I was I was happy when I crossed the line. I'm not sure I could have made it another lap, to be honest.
Well, you certainly did well, and it's nice to hear such a humble race winner. Normally, race winners are very confident in themselves, shall we say. But Eric, it's been brilliant to have a chat to you. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go and enjoy the evening?
Sorry, what? I didn't catch the last thing.
Anybody you'd like to give a shout out to? Anybody you'd like to thank? Any friends and family who might be watching or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. I have my 2 cats here. They're sleeping next to me.
They're not awake for that exciting race?
Well, not really, no.
Oh, well.
So, yeah.
Just rude. Well, thank you very much, Eric. We'll let you go and wake your cats up and potentially have a drink to enjoy the race win with.
I will. Thank you, Jack.
And that was Eric Axelsson, our race winner. We're going to move on to second place driver, Kyle Felvis. Kyle, you threw everything at that, and I have to say, your race pace was damn impressive.
Yeah, it was good. Eric's pace in quali was mega, putting in a 14.8, and everyone thought Eric was just going to fly away, really. And somehow my race pace managed to keep up with him, which I'm really happy about. I think he pit 1 lap earlier than me in the pit stop, so I thought maybe I'd try and overcut him, but he managed to pull away even more. So then it was just a lot more effort to try and catch back up, but eventually finishing 5 tenths back from him.
I was going to say it was very impressive. Was that something you'd you knew you had in the locker in terms of that race pace compared to, were you basically a bit disappointed with how your qualifying pace went in comparison to what you knew you could do when it comes to the race?
No, I was well
Okay.
happy with my quali pace. Race pace was just unbelievable. I don't know where it came from.
Well, it certainly came from a good place. And as I said in the commentary, you're easily one of the most consistent drivers that we've got here in the MX5s. You've gotten second and third places in pretty much every single race. Is that something you're proud of? Or are you that sort of typical racing driver where you're a bit annoyed that you haven't quite got onto that top step as many times as you'd like?
I mean, if you look at my driver ranking profile, then second is where I seem to come a lot. Eric just always stays in front. But yeah, it has been good this season so far. Touch wood, I haven't come off the podium, the physical podium, before penalties for the whole season so far, I believe. So touch wood, we'll keep it that way.
I was going to say, in terms of drop scores, you're in a healthy position, shall we say. So is it a case of you're just going to try and keep putting in the practice and hoping that Eric makes a little bit of a mistake? Are you going to try and force the mistake? Are you going to try and put in that time to get past him? What's the plan for the last 2 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, as long as I can stay on the back of him, and hopefully, very rare for Eric, but hopefully he'll make some mistakes if I'm behind him, and we can get ahead and catch back up in the points.
Well, fantastic, Carl. Thank you very much for coming in and having a chat to us. Is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
My mum and dad, because my sim rig wouldn't be what it is, and I wouldn't be racing without them ever since they took me to Thruxton. So yeah, thanks to them.
Yeah, well, they are definitely very proud. They've been putting in the YouTube chat, even though they'll probably make you blush there. But don't worry, the camera's not on you, Carl. Don't worry. But thank you very much. Go and enjoy the second place.
Thanks, Jack.
And now we move on to third place man, and Carvel was a teammate at HFT, Nikki Taylor. Nikki, I'll be honest, I can't actually remember where you qualified, but I know it wasn't third place, so I imagine that's a pretty happy man we've got in the commentary box with us.
Honestly, I was so annoyed after quali. I went across the line, done like a 15.6 or 7, I can't remember what it was, but that literally would have put me P3 in quali, but instead I ended up getting P6 because I just couldn't hook it up together. But at the end of the day, P6, P3, and my first podium in an endurance race finally. So, or not an endurance race, sorry, a double distance race.
Double distance. Illinois Andy McEwan otherwise.
Yeah, no, it's quite good to be fair. I just my race pace was there. I knew I was going to be quicker than a few people in front of me because I don't know. I literally done practice only tonight and not beforehand, which I think is going to have to be a recurring theme, like I said last week, because I'd done practice pretty much the night before last week and was quick. So I think me and this car just like practicing late.
Well, I was going to say sometimes, diamonds are formed under pressure and everything, aren't they, Nikki? So I think I'm right in saying, I'm just looking at my broadcast chat, and I seem to remember somebody saying, Lewis, I think, said, did you get a 2-minute 14 dead?
I did indeed.
That was this lap?
That was with 7 push to passes. Wow. Yes, it was a 14 dead. Me and Kyle were talking in our Google Meet, and it was like, I'm going to go fast as that. Kyle initially said, I'm going to go fast as that, and I was like, yeah, I'll go fast lap as well. So then Kyle kind of went through T1 and messed it up a little bit, and then was like, oh no, I'm just going to let you have your fast lap attempt, because if I keep trying to push for it, then I'm just going to screw my time up. So I just went full send and used 7 push passes, and somehow was like about 2 milliseconds or something off of 13.9. So yeah, it's quite a good lap.
I have absolutely no idea how you used 7 push to passes and didn't abuse track limits once, to be honest, because you'd be going into every corner about 5 miles an hour faster than you should have been. But no, great lap that, Nikki. Great third place as well. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, just a massive shout out to obviously my sponsors with being Enterprise Security and the alarm company, my mum and dad, and yeah, just hopefully I did, and everyone else. I think my nan's watching or something. So yeah, just everyone who I can do proud tonight, and I'm glad I've managed to hopefully do that.
Yeah, big up Nikki's nana, that's for sure. Thank you very much, Nikki, for having a chat to us. Go and enjoy your podium.
Go, cheers.
Do you know what, Jack?
Oh, hello, Rich.
Hello. You know what? There's one memory that I'm going to take away from this evening, and that's now I'm now seeing Eric sat there with 2 cats on his lap like a Bond villain, stroking them, going, "Wah-ha-ha," drinking his aquavit and saying "Skull."
Well, I'm glad we've entertained you for this evening, Rich. It was a damn good drive, to be fair. And if the
It was,
cats
he
bring
did
him
well.
good luck, then I, by all means, you should carry on doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think it's about that time that we sort of start looking at rounding up the evening. So I'm going to wait for Lewis Edwards to put something on our screen to have a chat about, because normally at this point Andy McEwan takes over and goes through all the preliminary standings. There we go. But I'm going to have to remember to do it this time. Eric Axelson with 245 points has pulled over a bit more of a gap to Carl Felvis. It's now up to 20. But remember, those pesky drop rounds are still in action, so they're still hiding and lurking under the surface. Eric doesn't have as much playroom, as much wiggle room as Kyle Felvis does, so he'll have to wait and see. Oh, actually, it just reminded me, off the top of my head, again, something Andy normally does. Kyle, are you still there?
Yeah, hello.
Well, you've got driver of the day, Kyle. Congratulations. I
Thank
do
you.
apologise for not announcing that during our interview. It was on my notes, but I didn't manage to get it out there. But congratulations, a brilliant drive, and you really surprised us with your race pace, so well done.
Thank you.
Fantastic stuff, and hopefully that will please a lot of the people that thought he should deserved it last week. I personally think he deserved it a lot more this week, actually. Really consistent and really good driving. Joel Lask is in 3rd place with 209 points. Nicky Taylor has made his way up to 4th with 183. Now 2 points ahead of Josh Martin, who, although having a semi-decent recovery drive, has probably not really had the evening that he was hoping for. Elliot Dalton-Ayres thought he might have turned a corner last week, and unfortunately it didn't quite go his way this week as well. He couldn't quite carry on the pace that he had at Bridgehampton. Jens Verhoeven is in 7th with Ethan Hill in 8th. Andy Carroll, who wasn't here tonight, was in 9th place. Sam Zero, who had probably the most airtime that he's had all season, is in the top 10. And Nathan Blank is in 11th place in the championship. Right, that's the championship done and dusted. We can see that the next race is at Virginia International Raceway, and then Watkins Glen to finish off the last couple of weeks. Virginia International Raceway is back to the double sprint format, and then Watkins Glen is the double distance format, the 40-minute race that we've seen here tonight, and it is culminating into what will be a very exciting championship finale. Winner takes all, hopefully, at Watkins Glen. That's not all we have here, though, at VRRC. Of course, in the top left of your screen, we have got the MX5 with Hybrid USA Tour. But on the top right, we got the fun race. And if you're wondering what the fun race is, well, I don't believe they've taken the vote yet, but it can be any kind of format that you pretty much see on the top right. It could be any of those multitude of cars, whether it's police vans or ambulances or Formula cars or tin tops or classic minis or touring cars or K2Ms, anything like that. And any of the tracks that you see on the right-hand side of that as well, ranging from the likes of VIR that we're up to next week, Spa, Imola, Detroit, Daytona, Bahrain, loads of circuits, all the way down to lowly Old Croft as well. So, yeah, there's plenty of opportunity. And you can join in with that free of charge, 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday. So if you're watching this or you know anybody who's into sim racing but they don't want to quite commit to a championship, they don't want to pay for the entry and all those sort of things, then by all means get them to tune into one of these broadcasts, click the link below into the website or the Discord, and they can get involved in the fun races on a Sunday night. The time attack, Rich has already mentioned them during the race then. They've become quite popular while we're currently attacking Baku in the F2 car, which, as Rich said, bit of a difficult beast, but not impossible. And in the time attack, unlike here, you pretty much have all week to try and master it and put the fastest time you can go into it. And I believe you have a 2-week turnaround for that one. So in fact, you can spend 2 weeks actually practicing for it. And there are prizes up for grabs as well in that. Again, more information can be found in the Discord below. And then, of course, if you're done with all that fast and frantic stuff and your adrenaline is pumping and you need to just relax, then by all means jump into our last AC server, which is the free roam server, currently at LA Canyons with GT Classic Legends cars. Jump in there potentially with your mates and just relax, and that will run from the 21st of September to the 4th of October, which means we might have had a change up. Rich, have we had a change in the free roam?
Free roam will change. Where are we now? Yeah, this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
So
Well,
it will be. So it's currently the Canyons with the Legends, but it's changing this week.
Okay. We'll keep an eye out on the VRRC socials to see what it's going to change into. But you get the gist. It's a place to relax, listen to some music, or put a podcast on, or something like that, and tune out of the world, basically. Right, that is all about time that we've had here today. My name's been Jack Oliphant. I haven't had Andy McEwan alongside me, but I have had Rich with me. And Rich, a big thank you to you for jumping in and helping me out when needs be.
Welcome, mate.
Fantastic. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, for Virginia International Raceway for what will be the penultimate round of the Mazda MX5 Hybrid USA Tour. Good night.
Woo!